Hello, my name's Sue Lewis, and I'm going to run you through this webinar, which is specifically about the Career Pilot Pathway Planner. And that's a personal guidance tool that helps you match guidance to individual needs through a triage process. And we've developed this through a bid to the Careers and Enterprise Company. So it'll help you with Gatsby 8, but also Gatsby 3, meeting individual needs. So I'm going to run through the Pathway Planner model, then show you how the Pathway Planner generates data and reports, and explain how you can get access to it. So in this geographical area, Career Pilot and the Pathway Planner are free to use because they're funded through a group of universities. If you're outside that region, then you will need to pay to access Career Pilot and the Pathway Planner. So external to the southwest, then it's £700 per annum for both the Career Pilot 4 zones, as you'll see, and the Pathway Planner, and less for SEND schools. So Career Pilot's all about having one site for students, parents, teachers and advisors. Behind Career Pilot, we're all trained careers practitioners. So Career Pilot has 4 zones, as you can see here. Everything really happens from the student zone. We also have an advisor zone with lots of lesson plans and materials, a parent zone, and a reporting zone with all the data the students are putting into their account is collated. And then there's the Pathway Planner. So this is the whole package. So the Pathway Planner is a triage tool that will help you analyze the guidance needs of your students at 3 different levels. All the things we do would support the Gatsby benchmarks too. So before we get going on the Pathway Planner, I'm just going to give you a bit about Career Pilot, just give you some context if you're not familiar with it. Career Pilot is all about putting the students at the centre and having activities that are age appropriate that support students from year 7 right up to year 13. So if you're the careers leader, you can have this one tool at the centre of your careers offer, and then everybody that's supporting the students can be referring to this tool. So as you saw, there's a parent zone, there's activities that could be done in tutor time or through PSHE. There's activities for subject teachers, but of course everything's leading towards personal guidance. So if students have been doing these activities from year 7, by the time they come to have personal guidance, then they're used to it and they're discussing their careers already. So the Pathway Planner comes in year 11 when they're chosen post 16, and then year 12 when they're chosen post 18. You could do it at the end of year 10, and you could do it again in year 13 if you wanted to. So this is Career Pilot. You've probably seen the homepage before. This is completely free access across the country. But if you're a subscriber or free access area in the Southwest, you can get your students to register or sign in if they've done that before, and that will enable them to build their report. They then get access to all the career tools. So this is where they can personalize their choices, my job sectors, whatever. And this is where the Pathway Planner will appear for them when you've switched it on. So for the students, this completes a report which moves up with them manually, but also collates data that you can access in the reporting zone. So you've probably seen these things before, but we have 3 sections, main sections of the site. We're trying to support students to go through a careers process. Start with you, activities to help them learn more about themselves and where their interests could take them. Explore your options is a range of ways to search for different options, and there's another section which I'll show you later. So just to show you in the explore your options section, this is a very popular part of the site. You can search for jobs by name or by sector, and we also can search now by green jobs too. And then when you find a job, this is how you can see our sectors. You could put a keyword in like animal. All these tiles leading towards a job profile. So this is where you find lots of data, like LMI data, but also entry requirements, pathways the students could take, the names of actual apprenticeships they could take to get into this job. And there's other data too, like how many people are currently working in this job by region. There's also live vacancy search as well, just so students can get experience in seeing how jobs are presented. So that graph is a good way of, bar graph is quite a quick way to see where the jobs might be for animal care worker in this case. And then the final part of our process is you've got all your information, you've done our skills map as well, you've got your skills profile. There's an ongoing little action planner you can do because this is all about planning your next step. When the students have completed the career tools activities, they can look at them as a dashboard, which is just a quick summary, or they can see the full report, and that's quite detailed. And you can also write your advisor comments, which is your advisor report. Your careers advisor would do this straight onto the site and also add any agreed actions. So everything's in one place. Okay, so I wanted to give you that sort of context to Career Pilot, which is our main thing. It's been going since 2011. And then in 2019, we built the Pathway Planner. We piloted it with 6 schools and then rolled it out on a pay-in basis, £250 per annum, so not much. And about 100 schools have been using it since then. But now we're making it part of our package. So if you're in the Southwest, you'll now get the Pathway Planner free alongside the 4 zones of Career Pilot. Or if you want to subscribe yourself, you'll get both things together. So we've got different versions. There's school version, which is for year 11 and 12, but there's also a college version as well. So when we put our bid into the Careers and Enterprise Company, we had to show how what we were doing met Gatsby 8, which as we know is a careers guidance session before they're 16 and the opportunity for another one by the age of 18. But we also had to show how we met the criteria of effective guidance. And this comes from a research report from the Careers and Enterprise Company called Personal Guidance, What Works. So these principles of integrating careers into the rest of the school, giving in a nice space at appropriate time, an element of preparation for the guidance and also feedback and follow-up. The guidance interview is effective and professional because it's delivered by somebody with a level 6 qualification. Okay, so the Pathway Planner is based on this sort of model that the students in year 11 or 12 have a 1-hour lesson which actually summarises their options. So you will have done all sorts of things in school to tell them about their next stage options. And this lesson, I'm going to make sure that everybody in that room knows the next stage options. So we'll talk about them in overview. They'll have some time on Career Pilot to look at which they're particularly interested in. And the last 10 minutes of the lesson, they're going to complete the Pathway Planner. And they will then do a quiz for any pathways they're particularly interested in, and they will get a red, amber, green score, which indicates their readiness to progress in that pathway. You can then look at all that data and allocate the guidance that those students will require. You can make all your bookings on the site, and you can also then deliver the guidance, but also then track how you're meeting your students' needs. So that timeline is a good visual way to see where they were, what you did, and where they are now. There's a few other things you could do. You can create a report showing what the progression plans are of a particular group of students. You can offer a weekly drop-in for self-referral and tutor referral. That's a really useful part of the model. You could get tutors involved in follow-up as well, and I'll talk a little bit about how you do that. And you could get your students to refer themselves as well. So to help you with our 1-hour lesson, we've developed 1-hour sessions, and they're all available as video recordings as well. So you can literally just press play, and whoever's delivering it will instruct the teacher and the class about what they need to do. As part of those presentations, we do show our 3-minute animated video. I don't know if you've seen that. And that just shows students the things they can do now to plan their careers, like know themselves, do stuff to build their CV and their skills, know all your options, and use your available supporters. And then the presentation will go through those things. Now, there's 2 ways you could deliver. Number one, you always have to get your students registered because they have to be in the Career Pilot system in order for you to attach the Pathway Planner to them. So number one, you could do that. There's a video session, which is based on about 15 to 20 minutes. Obviously, they need to have access to IT, where it just tells them how to register, and they can have a little play. They're all in the system then, and then you can assign them to the Pathway Planner. And then you do the 1-hour lesson I mentioned. Okay, so that's where they do the option choices, and then they do the Pathway Planner. So that's one way of doing it. You could, because we've got 5 career lessons for every year group that we've designed and developed, they're all available to you. You could do the option choice part of the lesson in lesson 1, and then lesson 2, 3, and 4 is where you drill down into those different pathways, and then in lesson 5 you do the Pathway Planner. And if you had that time to allocate to it, it would mean by the time they get to lesson 5, they probably have understood quite a lot more information about the pathways, and they might be presenting as less read. So it could be to your advantage to do that. But we know that not all schools can afford that time, so there's the one lesson option as well. So just a quick speed lesson of how the lesson for year 12s looks. It'll show them the qualification ladder, talk about where we are, where they are now, what they're choosing next, show the different pathways. And then for each of the options, it'll have some headline information, like about the levels of different apprenticeships in this case, where you could look for them, what you need to think about. You know, you might have to go sideways or lower in order to move from A levels to an apprenticeship, for example, to develop the technical knowledge for that particular pathway. Then they'll have some time on Career Pilot, probably about 20 minutes, and then they can actually look at things that will help them explore and understand their options further. So in the presentations, there'll always be some timer like this. Then they'll come back, and for the last 10 minutes, they can do the pathway planner. So this is now appearing for them in the career tools, and we could just say to the students, okay, you've had some time to look at all the options. We would like you to indicate what you're thinking of. All can be changed later, and then that'll help us to give you support by finding out what particularly you need. So they're going to be, if they click on that, they'll see the next stage pathways. They have to answer every line. So they say definite, considering, or not doing. So if they say definite or considering, they'll be asked to do a quiz. And the quiz is really a set of questions to see if they've done what they need to do and know what they need to know for that pathway. So in this example, this student is considering university level, and we ask them, you know, have you discussed that with your parents? Do you know what course subject you want to apply for? Do you know about the costs? And some of these are kind of red flags and some are fairly neutral. So they don't see all the scoring, but what they see at the end is a red, amber, green rating to indicate how ready they are for that pathway. So in this example, this person hasn't got a definite pathway. They're considering 3 different areas, 2 which are amber, 1 which is red. So what we did in our pilot, and every school has to flex according to their needs, is if somebody, we always remember the definite pathway. So there's no definite pathway in this case. But if there's a definite pathway and they're green for that, we would give them a 20-minute check of their plan. And this is where the drop-in comes in, which I'm going to mention in a minute. If they were considering something, they were amber, if they were definite about something, they were amber, they would get 30 minutes. If they're definite about something and they were red, they'd get the full 60 minutes that we had in our pilot. Now, this student is considering 3 different options, so I'll probably give them the amber and just check out what's going on there. They've always got ideas, but you know they haven't got enough information really to make an informed decision, perhaps, and that needs to be teased out a little bit about what they're really thinking. So there's a few things the students could do. They could see a timeline, which I'm going to show you in a minute, that shows them where they are and what interventions have been offered to them. You can build in, after the first guidance session set up for them, you can build in their ability to request guidance. So they could say, you know, I would like to see somebody again. And then that's where the drop-in comes in that I'm going to mention. But they can also ask for an e-guidance answer. So they could say something like, is there an apprenticeship in law? And you could reply to them through the system. So the drop-in, I mentioned that because it is a key and very useful part of the model. If the guidance advisor can be available 1 lunchtime a week, this is a great mop-up for any students who, after the first guidance, still feel worried. So maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, they're in the tears about it. So this is somewhere they could say, can I come back? And then they could be referred to drop-in. A tutor could refer them, and I'll show you how you can engage tutors. But this is where you can also offer group work. So if you're finding from the answers the students gave when they completed the pathway planner, you've got some students with a similar sort of barrier, if you like, that they don't know about the finance for higher education, for example, then you could get them together in the lunchtime drop-in. So it's a really useful mop-up for a great way to actually meet the needs of the students in an efficient way. So that was the student area. It's quite easy for them to do, as you can see, but it does generate a lot of useful information that you can then see through the other side of the system. So what I'm showing you now is the reporting zone, we call it, and this is the admin dashboard. So I've got name of my school at the top. The orange bit is all about your users. The turquoise bit is all about the main part of Career Pilot, looking at reports by group or individual. But the bit we're looking at today is the Pathway Planner. And if you decide to have that, if you want the Pathway Planner, then it'll be added to your site and then you'll see that bit. So to get access to this part of the system, you will need to complete a data sharing agreement with us, and then we give you access and a password, an admin password, and you can set passwords up for other staff. So when you get into, I'll just go back, results and bookings, for any group that you've set up for the Pathway Planner, a year group or a tutor group or whatever, you will see this sort of dashboard. So just to show you around it, year 11 haven't done it, post 16 have. So I can see quite quickly who's red, who's amber, who's green, but also what pathways they're particularly interested in. I can also, in their individual record, I could have tagged which students had an additional needs. So blue circle, additional needs, orange circle, pupil premium, yellow circle, education, health and care plan. So at a glance now, I can see what the group is looking like and what they're interested in. Because if they have got additional need, irrespective of how sorted they seem to be through the Pathway Planner, I might want to give them the maximum guidance anyway. That's certainly what we did in our pilot. So I can look across and see, who's interested in what. I can do a whole range of things I'll show you in a minute against the individual, one of which is make bookings. So I can see at a glance then which ones I've done, which will be pink, and which ones are coming up, which are green. So it's a good kind of way to get all that information. You can download that as well and play with it in Excel. So just to show you a few things, against the individual, you can see their answers. So if you looked at multiple students, you might find there's a common element, and that is when you can actually book a group guidance session, as I said, through drop-in. You can view their timeline, which I'm going to show you in a minute, book guidance onto the system. You can do, when the guidance advisor has seen the student, as they leave almost, they could do this one-liner, the progression follow-up. So that I'll show you that in a minute. And then tutors, if you involve tutors, they could show that they followed up too. And then if the advisor's writing a longer report, they could just put an advisor comment and that will appear on the student's main report, as I showed you earlier. Okay. So if you are interested in the Pathway Planner, this is the introduction, and when you sign up for it, you'll get a longer training session where we'll go through a lot of these things in a lot more detail. But just to show you, it's dead easy to set up a booking. So I've looked at the students, red, amber, green. I've decided they need to come and see me, and I put in, see Miss Lewis in room 503, whatever it is, date, time, and then I allocate what sort of guidance I'm going to be offering. So we don't put minutes, but you could say I'm going to give them a long guidance session. Or if they drop in, I could record that. If they self-refer, tutor refer, e-guidance request, parental referral, and all those things are going to appear on their timeline. So it's really good to show what they needed and what interventions you offered. I'll come to that in a minute. In terms of when you've got a lot of bookings, you can go to another feature in the Pathway Planner where you can manage all your bookings. So you can sort them by clicking on these little arrows alphabetically by person or date or type of guidance. You can also put did not attend. So if they don't turn up, that'll appear on their timeline as well if you tick that. And you can download it. So you could put a caseload together for an external advisor, if you like, where you'd actually put in what sort of guidance they're going to be allocated. Or they might work with you on how you allocate the guidance. That can happen too. So in terms of the careers advisor, there's, this is a really great support. We're all trained careers advisors. We use this. It's brilliant because the night before we could find out a lot by the students. I can access all the data. During guidance, I'm going to be using Career Pilot tools when I'm going through my guidance process of exploration, option choices and actions. And after, this is what you'd like your guidance advisor to do. As they leave the room, they do the one-liner, the progression report, which I'm going to show you. They can write agreed actions on the system, and they can write their full report, but they should also get the students to edit their responses on the Pathway Planner. So the students log in and they just change their answers based on how they've moved on, really. So you're hoping that that is happening. So as a careers advisor, I've got loads of information. So really helps them to feel that they can start higher up the food chain with the student because they've got all this pre-information. So during, I'm going to be using Career Pilot. There's lots of useful tools I can use there. And at the end, I'm going to be doing my progression follow-up. So as they leave me, it's great for me as an advisor because it's a good way for me to remember too. I can put in, they might come in with 3 pathways, they're going out with 2, university level study, they're definitely by that now. These are the subjects they're interested in, and this is how likely they are to get the grades. And I can choose firm, lightly, borderline. And I can add on another pathway if they're still thinking about something else. I can write my actions, I agree with the students, and I can write my full report straight onto the site. For the students, the actions will appear here, and the full report will just be part of their main report there. I can add links to anything in Career Pilot, I can add external links, so I can make quite an interactive report. So the timeline I mentioned a few times, so let's just go through that a bit. So the way it works is when the students first do the Pathway Planner, they get a red, amber, green, as in this example, working from the bottom up. And as a result of that, that was looked at and they got a long guidance session on the 24th of February. They then were asked to go in and edit their responses. So on the 25th of February, they now had 2 pathways and were green and amber. And you could put anything on there. You could put did not attend, you could put a drop-in or a guidance, e-guidance request. So you can see all the interventions and see how that's changing the students' preparation for their next stage progression. So we talked about the role of the careers advisor, but you could also, and this is what we did in our pilot, 4 weeks after guidance, we got the tutors involved as well. Doesn't have to be a tutor, but what they did was a 5-minute follow-up with each of their tutees. And if they were concerned about them, they referred them to the drop-ins, so the students could have another short session. For the tutors, we just asked them to ask 3 questions. So if the student wasn't on target with their actions, that wasn't a case to refer them. But if they were worried about their pathways or change their pathways, then the tutor could refer them for drop-in, which is why the drop-in is really good. The tutor could have an access to Career Pilot 2 and say, go in and put against the student that they'd done it and say whether they're referring them again or not. And then the other thing you could do through the Pathway Planner is the progression follow-up. And this is the one-liner done by the careers advisor and indicates whether the follow-up has been done by the tutor, whoever else you give that role to. So this report then could be downloaded, could be shared with people in the school, it could be that the tutor for that group gets this, or the head of year. So everybody's helping the students to get where they want to go. We've had brilliant feedback from doing the Pathway Planner, especially identifying students who maybe you wouldn't necessarily think were needing additional support. The grey students, somebody called them, you think they wouldn't have any major issues, but what this shows is that they do sometimes have issues, maybe having too many pathways to choose rather than limited choices. And you can see that people feel has been very helpful in and strategic was the feedback too in having a way of offering guidance to students. So if you decide you do want to go ahead with the Pathway Planner, then the training is about an hour and a half in reality, but that training is compulsory and you have to come before we'll switch it on for you. And the reason for that is because we want to show you how to set up groups. I want to give you access to all the materials, I want to switch it on for you and tell you how you can get access to all the reports in the back end. You will then become part of a Pathway Planner user group, so you can suggest improvements. Every year we ask the audience what they would like to see on the site. On Career Pilot in the Advisor Zone, there is a whole tile about the Pathway Planner if you want to read more, and there's a whole load of other stuff there as well. Careers Leader portal showing how Career Pilot maps to Gatsby and could help with Campus Plus. how you can get access to reporting zone, loads of lessons, how you can subscribe, lots of lesson plans, hot job posters, free training, all sorts of things on the advisor zone, some of which you will need to have your admin password to access, but some are open access as well. I'm just giving you some examples here. We have 5 career lessons for every year group, which got a different focus. They're all mapped to the CDI framework, so each lesson will have 2 outcomes from the CDI framework that is trying to support. And we have our video. We've got activities you can do offline. So these are fun things you could do. We've got a set for Key Stage 3 and set for Key Stage 4, like careers bingo, that sort of thing. We've got hot job posters for green, NHS, digital and IT. Got resources for subject teachers so they can align their subject more closely with careers with some quick suggestions. There's lots there really. So if you're interested, the next thing you need to do is sign up. So you'll get a follow-up email from coming to the Pathway Planner introduction webinar, and that'll tell you how to sign up and book a training place. It'll take about 1.5 hours in reality, but that'll help you set up the whole thing. If you want any other training on Career Pilot generally, then we offer lots of free training. We can do one-to-one consultations for your school. We can also train your staff team as well if you wanted to do it. It's all done through Teams, but if you wanted a staff training session, we could help you with that too. Okay, and these are our dates just up till June, July, but there will be new ones for September. If you have any questions, the best place to go is our helpline, which is available 9 to 3, mostly Monday to Thursday in term time. So careerpilot@bath.ac.uk is the email address, and you can see the phone number there. So that's your first point of contact if you've got any queries at all. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you found it useful and that you'll consider signing up to use the Pathway Planner.